The midnight sky over New Delhi sparkled with an unusual intensity that summer night, as if the universe itself was preparing to change the life of one lonely soul forever. No one noticed the small crystalline pod that descended silently through the atmosphere, its surface gleaming like dewdrops in the moonlight. It landed softly in an abandoned lot behind an old apartment complex, where wildflowers grew through cracks in the concrete. Inside the pod lay a small figure, no more than 6 years old, with skin that held a subtle bluish tint and eyes that seemed to reflect the very stars she had traveled through. Her name was something melodic and otherworldly, but she would soon be known simply as Asha, meaning hope in the language of her new home. The child emerged from her pod weak and disoriented, her thin frame trembling in the warm night air. Her world, a planet orbiting a distant star, had faced an unprecedented crisis. Her parents, knowing they could not survive, had made the heart-wrenching decision to send their only daughter to Earth, believing it was her only chance at survival. For 3 days, Asha wandered the bustling streets of the city, invisible to most passers-by. She survived on scraps she found behind restaurants, her alien physiology allowing her to digest Earth food, though barely. Her clothes, made of a strange iridescent material, had begun to fade and tear, making her look like any other street child in the sprawling metropolis. It was on the 4th day that she caught the attention of Mr. Sharma, a 68-year-old retired schoolteacher who lived alone in a modest apartment filled with books and memories. He was returning from his evening walk when he spotted the little girl huddled in a corner of the local market, trying to stay warm despite the summer heat, a peculiarity that made him pause. Mr. Sharma had lived a quiet life after losing his wife 5 years ago. Their only child had moved to America, too busy with his own life to visit more than once a year. The old man's days had fallen into a routine of morning tea, newspaper reading, and evening walks, until that fateful night. As he approached Asha, he noticed something different about her, not just her appearance, but a profound sadness in her eyes that seemed older than her years. When she looked up at him, Mr. Sharma felt a connection he couldn't explain, as if the universe had orchestrated this meeting. "Are you hungry?" he asked in Hindi, then in English, holding out half of the sandwich he'd bought for dinner. Asha didn't speak, but her eyes widened at the sight of food. She reached out cautiously, her fingers slightly longer than those of a human child, though Mr. Sharma attributed this to her malnourished state. As she ate, Mr. Sharma noticed other subtle differences, the way her skin seemed to shimmer slightly in the streetlight, how her movements were too graceful for a starving child. But what struck him most was the complete absence of fear in her eyes. Instead, there was a deep intelligence and an unmistakable sense of loss. He couldn't leave her there. Something told him this child was special, that she needed not just help, but protection. "Would you like to come home with me? I have more food there," he offered, extending his hand. To his surprise, Asha stood up and took it without hesitation, as if she could sense the kindness in his heart. That night marked the beginning of an extraordinary journey for both of them. In Mr. Sharma's small but warm apartment, Asha ate 3 bowls of simple vegetable khichdi, each spoonful seeming to bring more color to her unusual complexion. Mr. Sharma noticed how she studied everything with intense curiosity, the ceiling fan, the television, even the simple steel cups in his kitchen. When it was time to sleep, he made a comfortable bed for her on his old sofa, using soft blankets his wife had kept for guests. As he turned to go to his room, Asha spoke for the first time, not in words, but in a gentle humming sound that filled the room with a sense of peace and gratitude. That night, Mr. Sharma lay awake, his mind racing with questions. Who was this mysterious child? Where had she come from? He had always been a practical man, believing in science and logic, but something about Asha challenged everything he thought he knew about the world. In the following days, Mr. Sharma began to understand that taking care of Asha would be unlike anything he had ever done. She didn't speak any language he knew, but she learned at an astonishing rate. Within days, she was picking up Hindi words, though she seemed to prefer communicating through gestures and those strange, melodic hums. He also noticed other peculiarities, how she would stare at the night sky for hours from his small balcony, how plants seemed to grow better in her presence, and how she could fix broken electronics with just a touch, though she tried to hide this ability from him. The challenges of their new life together became apparent quickly. Mr. Sharma knew he couldn't enroll her in school without proper documentation, and taking her to a doctor was out of the question. Instead, he began teaching her at home, drawing from his years of experience as an educator. To his amazement, Asha absorbed knowledge like a sponge, especially anything related to science and astronomy. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Sometimes, late at night, Mr. Sharma would hear soft crying from the living room. He would find Asha bathed in a faint, bluish glow, her tears seeming to shimmer as they fell. In these moments, he would sit beside her, sharing her grief for a world and family she had lost, though he didn't yet fully understand the magnitude of her loss. As the days turned into weeks, their unlikely family unit began to develop its own rhythm. Every morning, they would water the plants together on the balcony, which had mysteriously begun producing the most beautiful flowers the neighbors had ever seen. In the afternoons, Mr. Sharma would teach Asha about Earth, while she, in her own way, taught him about the vastness of the universe through drawings of stars and planets he had never seen in any astronomy book. The local community, initially suspicious of the old man suddenly taking in a child, gradually warmed to them. Asha's gentle nature and the way she helped tend to the community garden made her a favorite among the neighbors, even though she rarely spoke. Mr. Sharma simply told everyone she was his distant relative's child, and most people, seeing how well they took care of each other, didn't question further. What no one knew was that every night, after Mr. Sharma went to bed, Asha would take out a small crystal from her original clothes, a data storage device from her home world. In it were memories of her parents and her planet, along with a message she was still too young to fully decode. As she held it, its soft glow illuminating her face, she would silently promise her parents that she would make them proud on this new world that was slowly becoming her home. 1 month into their life together, Mr. Sharma finally gathered the courage to ask Asha about her origins. They sat on the balcony one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded Asha of her home world. Using a mixture of basic Hindi, gestures, and drawings, she began to share her story, and Mr. Sharma's world would never be the same again. That evening on the balcony marked a turning point in their relationship. As the sky darkened and stars began to twinkle above, Asha used her small crystal to project images into the air, holographic scenes of a world that took Mr. Sharma's breath away. A planet with twin moons, where the vegetation glowed with bioluminescence, and crystalline cities stretched toward purple skies. Through a combination of newly learned Hindi words, gestures, and the crystal's projections, Asha revealed how her world had faced a devastating environmental crisis. Their sun had begun to emit dangerous radiation levels, slowly making their planet uninhabitable. Her parents had been leading scientists, working desperately to find a solution, but time had run out faster than anyone had anticipated. Mr. Sharma watched in amazement as the holographic images showed Asha's parents, tall, elegant beings with the same subtle blue tint to their skin and those remarkable, star-filled eyes. They had been part of a program to save their species, but when their planet's magnetic field began to collapse suddenly, they only had time to save their daughter. The escape pods meant for adults had been destroyed in a solar storm, leaving only the small pod designed for children. As Asha shared her story, small flowers on the balcony began to glow faintly, responding to her emotions. Mr. Sharma realized that what he had initially attributed to her being good with plants was actually a natural ability of her species. They shared a symbiotic relationship with vegetation, able to communicate with and enhance plant life through touch. The revelation of Asha's true identity filled Mr. Sharma with both wonder and worry. His scientific mind was amazed by the existence of such advanced life forms, but his heart ached knowing the burden this young child carried. He also realized the danger she would be in if the wrong people discovered her identity. That night, after Asha had fallen asleep, Mr. Sharma sat in his study, surrounded by his old physics and astronomy books. Everything he had learned and taught over his 40 years as a science teacher seemed somehow both validated and inadequate in the face of what he now knew. He began making notes, creating a detailed plan to protect Asha while helping her adapt to life on Earth. The next morning brought new challenges. Asha's increasing comfort with their situation meant she was becoming more curious, more adventurous. During their morning routine, she accidentally caused all the plants in their small garden to bloom simultaneously, an event that drew unwanted attention from the neighbors. Quick-thinking Mr. Sharma explained it away as a new fertilizer he was testing, but he knew they needed to help Asha control her abilities. They developed a system together. In the mornings, they would practice what they called being Earth-like exercises to help Asha suppress her natural glow and control her plant-affecting abilities. Mr. Sharma turned it into a game, rewarding her with extra stories from his collection of books when she managed to maintain her human appearance for extended periods. But it wasn't all about hiding who she was. In the privacy of their home, Mr. Sharma encouraged Asha to be herself, to teach him about her world and her people's knowledge. He set up a small laboratory in his spare room, using his retirement savings to buy basic scientific equipment. Here, Asha could safely experiment with her abilities and share her world's technology through drawings and the crystal's projections. Their afternoons took on a new routine. While Mr. Sharma taught Asha about Earth's history, culture, and sciences, she taught him about advanced physics that his books had only theorized about. Her knowledge, though that of a child from her world, contained insights that would have revolutionized Earth's understanding of the universe, if they could have shared it. One day, while experimenting in their makeshift lab, Asha made a breakthrough in communicating complex ideas. She discovered she could create simple three-dimensional models using her natural bioluminescence, combined with ordinary household materials. This allowed her to explain concepts from her world that had no equivalent in Earth languages. Through these models, she showed Mr. Sharma how her people had learned to harness the energy of plants, creating sustainable power sources that worked in harmony with nature. She demonstrated principles of gravity manipulation that her civilization had mastered centuries ago, and concepts of space travel that made Earth's current technology seem primitive in comparison. But with each revelation came new concerns. Mr. Sharma noticed dark vans occasionally parked in their neighborhood, and men in suits asking questions about unusual light phenomena in the area. He began taking different routes to the market, varying their daily routines, and teaching Asha about the importance of discretion. The local community, though friendly, was becoming increasingly curious about the strange occurrences around their apartment. The community garden, where Asha loved to help, had become almost impossibly fertile, producing vegetables of extraordinary size and vitality. While most neighbors attributed this to Mr. Sharma's supposed green thumb, some began asking uncomfortable questions. One evening, they had a close call when Mrs. Gupta, their elderly neighbor, dropped by unannounced during one of Asha's crystal sessions. They barely managed to hide the holographic projections, but Mrs. Gupta noticed the faint blue glow around Asha. Mr. Sharma explained it away as a new LED lamp he was testing, but the incident left them both shaken. That night, as they sat in their dimly lit living room, Asha revealed something new through her crystal. The device contained not just memories, but also a warning. Her parents had discovered that other civilizations had been searching for survivors of their kind, though their intentions weren't clear. Some sought to help, while others had more sinister motivations. Mr. Sharma realized their situation was more complex than he had imagined. They weren't just hiding from Earth authorities, but potentially from other alien civilizations as well. The responsibility weighed heavily on him, but looking at Asha's trusting face, he knew he would do whatever it took to protect her. As the evening drew to a close, Asha surprised Mr. Sharma by speaking her first complete sentence in Hindi, "You are my new family now." The simple statement brought tears to his eyes. In that moment, he understood that while the universe had brought them together by chance, their bond had become something powerful and profound, a connection that transcended species and spanned the stars themselves. What neither of them knew was that their greatest challenges still lay ahead, as both earthly and otherworldly forces were beginning to take notice of the unusual events in their quiet corner of New Delhi. The lessons they had learned about trust, adaptation, and family would soon be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. The changes began subtly at first. Mr. Sharma noticed that the stray dogs in their neighborhood would follow Asha with gentle, almost reverent attention. Birds would perch unusually close when she sat on the balcony, and even the usually temperamental neighborhood cats would curl up contentedly at her feet. It seemed that Earth's creatures could sense something special about her, something beyond her human disguise. One particularly humid morning, as monsoon clouds gathered overhead, Asha made an extraordinary discovery. While helping Mr. Sharma clean out his old storage room, she found a dusty box containing his late wife's astronomical research papers. Mrs. Sharma had been an amateur astronomer, spending countless nights observing the stars from their balcony. Among her notes was something that made Asha's crystal pulse with an unexpected blue light, calculations about unusual stellar activity observed near the very sector of space where her home planet had been. Through her crystal's projections, Asha revealed something she hadn't understood until now: her parents hadn't chosen Earth by random chance. They had detected signals suggesting that others of their kind had visited this planet before, perhaps centuries ago, leaving behind hidden sanctuaries for their people. The revelation gave both Asha and Mr. Sharma a new sense of purpose, but it also meant they needed to be even more careful. Their quest for answers led them to develop an ingenious communication system. Using her natural ability to influence plants, Asha learned to encode messages in the growth patterns of their balcony garden. Mr. Sharma, drawing from his years of teaching experience, helped her create a botanical cipher that looked like ordinary decorative arrangements to others but contained complex information they could share safely. However, their peaceful routine was disrupted one rainy afternoon when a group of government scientists arrived at their apartment complex, allegedly conducting a survey about unusual atmospheric phenomena in the area. Mr. Sharma watched from their window as they set up strange equipment in the parking lot, their machines blinking with ominous red lights. That evening, Asha's crystal began behaving strangely, projecting fractured images of what appeared to be other refugee ships, some possibly heading toward Earth. The projection showed dozens of pods similar to hers, scattered across different regions of the galaxy. Some of the images seemed to suggest that other children like her might have already reached Earth, hidden among its vast population. Mr. Sharma realized they needed help, but trust was a precious and dangerous commodity. After careful consideration, he reached out to his old friend Dr. Iyer, a retired quantum physicist who had always been more interested in theoretical possibilities than conventional science. However, before revealing anything about Asha, they needed to be certain of his trustworthiness. They devised a clever test. Using Asha's ability to influence electronics, they arranged for Dr. Iyer to accidentally discover some unusual energy readings in his own laboratory equipment. His reaction would tell them whether he could be trusted with their secret. To their relief, Dr. Iyer responded with quiet fascination rather than alarm, methodically documenting the anomalies without alerting any authorities. Meanwhile, Asha's powers were growing in unexpected ways. One night, during a severe thunderstorm that had caused a neighborhood-wide power outage, she discovered she could perceive electrical fields. Through touch, she could redirect the flow of electricity, restoring power to essential medical equipment in their elderly neighbor's home. Mr. Sharma used his influence in the community to explain it away as a backup generator, but he worried that such incidents would eventually draw unwanted attention. Their apartment had become a carefully maintained sanctuary of secrets. The balcony garden now contained plants from Mr. Sharma's collection that had been subtly modified by Asha's touch, producing oxygen-rich air that helped her breathe more comfortably in Earth's atmosphere. The spare room had been transformed into a hidden laboratory where they studied the crystal's data, its walls covered with star charts marking possible locations of other refuges. But perhaps the most remarkable development was happening within Asha herself. As she grew more comfortable with her new life, she began to dream, vivid dreams that she would paint using luminescent pigments she created from modified plants. These paintings revealed glimpses of both her lost world and possible futures, some showing other children like her, scattered across Earth, each with their own guardian, each holding a piece of their civilization's legacy. One painting in particular caught Mr. Sharma's attention. It showed a pattern of constellations he didn't recognize, with lines connecting them in a specific sequence. When they compared it to Mrs. Sharma's old research notes, they found a surprising correlation. She had documented similar patterns years ago, dismissing them as atmospheric anomalies. Could his late wife have unknowingly discovered evidence of Asha's people? Their investigation was interrupted by an unexpected visit from Mrs. Gupta, who brought news that made their hearts race. Government officials were going door to door in nearby neighborhoods, asking questions about unusual plant growth and unexplained electrical phenomena. They showed particular interest in children who excelled in sciences or displayed unique talents. That night, as heavy rain drummed against their windows, Mr. Sharma and Asha sat in their makeshift laboratory, poring over Mrs. Sharma's notes and Asha's paintings. The crystal pulsed with an urgent rhythm they hadn't seen before, projecting fragments of a message that seemed to be a set of coordinates. As they worked to decode it, both felt that they were on the verge of discovering something that would change not just their lives, but perhaps the fate of all of Asha's scattered people. What they didn't realize was that high above Earth's atmosphere, something was stirring. Satellites operated by various space agencies began detecting anomalies similar to those recorded the night Asha arrived. In observatories across the globe, astronomers noted unusual patterns in the night sky, and in different corners of the world, other hidden guardians and their alien wards looked up at the same stars, sensing that a new chapter in their extraordinary story was about to begin. The first signs of change came in the form of dreams, not just Asha's prophetic visions, but Mr. Sharma's as well. He began seeing fragments of a world he had never visited, glimpses of crystalline cities and purple skies that felt as real as his own memories. Dr. Iyer suggested that prolonged exposure to Asha's crystal might have created a subtle psychic link, a theory that both excited and unnerved them. One particularly memorable morning began with an unexpected discovery. Asha found that the plants in their balcony garden had arranged themselves into a perfect geometric pattern overnight, forming what looked like a star map. When she touched the central plant, a surge of energy caused every leaf to glow with a faint blue light, revealing a hidden message encoded in their cellular structure. Dr. Iyer, now a regular visitor to their apartment under the guise of giving Mr. Sharma computer lessons, helped them analyze the pattern. His expertise in quantum physics proved invaluable as they realized the plants were responding to some form of quantum entanglement, possibly connected to other gardens around the world where Asha's people had taken refuge. Their breakthrough came during the festival of Diwali. The city was alive with lights and fireworks, providing perfect cover for any unusual illuminations from their apartment. As families across Delhi celebrated with diyas and sparklers, Asha's crystal began responding to the collective energy of the celebration. The holographic projections it produced were clearer than ever before, revealing a message hidden deep within its coating. The message was from Asha's mother, but it wasn't just a goodbye, it was a manual, a guide to accessing what she called the Earth Sanctuaries. According to the message, centuries ago, an advanced scouting party from their civilization had established hidden safe houses on Earth, disguised as ordinary locations but containing technology far beyond human understanding. These sanctuaries were meant to serve as emergency shelters if their world ever faced catastrophe. But the revelations didn't stop there. Mr. Sharma's late wife's research contained coordinates that matched perfectly with one of these sanctuary locations. It seemed impossible at first, but then they realized, Mrs. Sharma hadn't just been studying the stars, she had been unconsciously documenting evidence of these alien structures, her scientific intuition leading her to truths she couldn't fully comprehend. The coordinates pointed to an ancient step well in an abandoned part of the city, a place where tourists rarely ventured and locals avoided due to strange stories about lights and unexplained phenomena. Mr. Sharma remembered his wife spending countless nights documenting unusual energy readings from that area, readings that her colleagues had dismissed as equipment malfunctions. As they delved deeper into the mystery, Asha's abilities continued to evolve. She discovered she could communicate with insects, using them as tiny scouts to watch for any suspicious activity in their neighborhood. Through this network of small allies, they learned that the government scientists had set up a permanent monitoring station just a few blocks away, disguised as a weather research facility. Their situation became more complex when Asha developed a new ability. She could now perceive the emotional residue left in objects, reading the history of items through touch. This gift led to an astonishing discovery when she handled an old artifact in Dr. Iyer's collection, a small, seemingly ordinary stone carving that turned out to be an ancient marker left by her people, its surface encoded with microscopic patterns visible only to their kind. The stone carving revealed something remarkable: Asha's people hadn't chosen Earth randomly. They had been visiting for millennia, subtly guiding human development while remaining hidden. Some of humanity's greatest architectural and scientific achievements had been gentle nudges from these ancient visitors, helping Earth's civilization progress while maintaining its independent development. During this time, Mr. Sharma noticed other changes in their daily life. The stray animals that had always been drawn to Asha now seemed to be actively protecting them. Cats would appear and yowl warnings whenever strangers approached their building, and birds would create diversions when surveillance teams got too close. It was as if Earth's creatures recognized Asha as something precious that needed to be protected. Their neighborhood underwent subtle transformations too. The plants touched by Asha began exhibiting extraordinary properties: vegetables with enhanced nutritional value, flowers that could purify air more efficiently than any human-made filter, and trees that seemed to respond to the emotions of people around them. Mr. Sharma carefully distributed these enhanced plants throughout the community, creating a living shield of enhanced vegetation that could mask Asha's energy signature from detection. One night, during a particularly intense thunderstorm, Asha's crystal synchronized with the atmospheric electricity, projecting a massive holographic map onto the clouds themselves. For a brief moment, anyone looking up would have seen strange constellations painted across the Delhi sky, though most would have dismissed it as lightning or festival lights. But for Asha and Mr. Sharma, it was a revelation. The map showed the locations of every sanctuary on Earth, and more importantly, it showed that some were active. Dr. Iyer's scientific equipment, modified by Asha's touch, detected faint signals suggesting that other refugee children had indeed reached Earth. Each signal pulsed with a unique frequency, like heartbeats across the globe, some strong and steady, others faint and flickering. They realized they weren't alone in their journey. Across the world, other guardians were protecting children like Asha, each holding a piece of their civilization's legacy. As they worked to understand these signals, Mr. Sharma received an unexpected package. It contained his wife's old journal, sent by a colleague who had been clearing out university storage. The journal's final pages contained detailed sketches of the step well, along with notes about unusual energy patterns that matched perfectly with Asha's crystal readings. It seemed Mrs. Sharma had been closer to the truth than anyone had realized, her research unknowingly paving the way for the very future she wouldn't live to see. The journal's discovery gave them new purpose. They began preparing for a journey to the step well, knowing it would be dangerous but necessary. The government teams were closing in, and the crystal's pulses were becoming more urgent. Something was coming, something that would change not just their lives, but the future of both their worlds. What they didn't know was that high above Earth, beyond the reach of human telescopes, others were watching. The same forces that had destroyed Asha's world were stirring, and Earth's scattered guardians would soon need to make a choice: remain hidden and safe, or rise to face a threat that had followed the children across the stars. The preparations for their journey to the step well began in secret. Each morning, before dawn painted the sky, Mr. Sharma would walk different routes through the old city, mapping out hidden pathways and documenting security camera locations. Dr. Iyer created elaborate electronic disguises, small devices that could create localized power fluctuations, perfect for masking their movements from surveillance equipment. But it was Asha who made the most remarkable discovery. One night, while practicing with her growing abilities, she found she could communicate with the ancient banyan trees that dotted the city. These living ancestors, some over 5 centuries old, held memories in their roots, memories of others like her who had passed through Delhi over the centuries, seeking the same sanctuary they now pursued. Through the banyan network, Asha learned that the step well wasn't just a sanctuary, it was a nexus point, one of 7 major confluences around the world where her people's technology integrated with Earth's natural energy fields. The trees themselves had been planted by her ancestors, creating a living network that could channel and direct energy across vast distances. Their plans accelerated when Mr. Sharma's son unexpectedly announced he was visiting from America. The timing couldn't have been worse, or perhaps, as they would later realize, more perfect. Young Rajiv, now a computer security expert in Silicon Valley, had always been more interested in circuits than the stars his mother studied. Yet his skills would prove invaluable in ways none of them could have predicted. The day before Rajiv's arrival, Asha made another breakthrough with her crystal. By synchronizing its energy with the growth patterns of their balcony plants, she created a natural holographic camouflage. The technique allowed her to appear completely human, even under close inspection. The only catch was that it required constant concentration, like holding a difficult yoga pose. Rajiv's arrival brought both tension and unexpected hope. Though initially puzzled by his father's young ward, his technical expertise picked up on subtle anomalies in the neighborhood's power grid, patterns that matched his mother's old research notes perfectly. When he discovered one of Asha's luminescent paintings hidden in his old room, the truth couldn't be contained any longer. To everyone's surprise, Rajiv took the revelation with remarkable calm. "Mom always said the universe was stranger than we imagined," he said, studying Asha's crystal with professional interest. "I just never thought I'd see proof in my father's living room." His presence added new dimensions to their plans, his security clearance and technical knowledge opened doors they hadn't known existed. Through Rajiv's careful probing of government databases, they learned that other unusual events had been recorded across India, unexplained garden transformations in Bangalore, mysterious power fluctuations in Kolkata, and most intriguingly, a series of atmospheric phenomena around ancient water structures similar to their step well. The crystal's pulses grew stronger as the monsoon season approached. The increased atmospheric electricity seemed to amplify its power, allowing Asha to receive clearer messages from other refugee children. Through these fragmentary communications, they learned that each child had received different pieces of their civilization's knowledge, some understood biology, others mathematics, and some, like Asha, had deeper connections to Earth's plant life. Dr. Iyer's analysis suggested that this distribution wasn't random. The children were like seeds, each carrying different aspects of their civilization's legacy, planted strategically across Earth. Together, they held the knowledge to either save their new home from the same fate as their original world or to prevent that catastrophe from reaching Earth in the first place. Their breakthrough came during a heavy monsoon night. The rain had knocked out power to half the city, providing perfect cover for what they needed to do. Using Rajiv's security expertise, Dr. Iyer's scientific knowledge, and Mr. Sharma's intimate understanding of the old city's layout, they devised a plan to reach the step well. Asha's connection with the local wildlife proved crucial. Colonies of bats became their aerial scouts, while packs of street dogs created diversions to distract security patrols. The rats of the old city, normally a nuisance, became an invaluable network of ground-level surveillance, warning them of approaching dangers through Asha's unique ability to communicate with them. But the most extraordinary assistance came from the plants themselves. The trees along their route, influenced by months of exposure to Asha's presence, began exhibiting bioluminescent properties. To most observers, it looked like an unusual algae bloom brought on by the monsoon. In reality, it was a living pathway, visible only to those who knew what to look for. As they made their final preparations, Mr. Sharma found himself remembering his wife's last words, the answers are in the water, they've always been in the water. At the time, he'd attributed it to fever dreams, but now he wondered, had she known? Had her research brought her to the very threshold of this discovery? Their plan would have to be executed perfectly. Government teams had increased their presence in the area, and strange lights had been seen in the sky, lights that made Asha's crystal pulse with what felt like recognition or warning. Time was running out, and the step-well's secrets couldn't wait any longer. What none of them realized was that their activities had attracted attention from beyond Earth. In the depths of space, ancient sentinels stirred, automated systems set up by Asha's people centuries ago activating one by one. The very stars seemed to hold their breath as multiple forces converged on Delhi, all seeking what lay hidden in the depths of an ancient step-well. The night of their planned expedition arrived with an unexpected astronomical event, a meteor shower that hadn't been predicted by any observatory. As fragments of light streaked across the sky, Asha's crystal began to emit a harmonious tone that resonated with something deep beneath the city streets. The ancient network was awakening, and with it, the true purpose of the sanctuaries was about to be revealed. The night of their expedition arrived with an atmosphere charged with both electricity and destiny. The monsoon clouds hung low over Delhi, occasional flashes of lightning illuminating the ancient streets like nature's own signal flares. Mr. Sharma, Asha, Rajiv, and Dr. Iyer moved through the shadows of the old city, their path guided by the subtle bioluminescence of plants that responded to Asha's presence. The step-well lay in a forgotten corner of the city, its ancient stones holding secrets older than human civilization. As they approached, Asha's crystal began pulsing with an intensity they'd never seen before, its light synchronizing with the lightning above. The street dogs that had been their faithful guardians formed a protective perimeter, while overhead, bats and night birds maintained aerial surveillance. But they weren't alone. Government vehicles had been spotted in the area, and strange atmospheric disturbances suggested that others, perhaps not from Earth, were watching. Through her connection with the local wildlife, Asha sensed multiple groups converging on their location, all drawn by the awakening energy of the sanctuary. As they descended the ancient steps of the well, something extraordinary happened. The worn stone steps began to glow with faint patterns, geometric designs that matched the ones in Mrs. Sharma's research journals. Each step they took revealed more illuminated symbols, creating a cascade of light that flowed like water down into the depths. Halfway down, they encountered their first challenge. The air itself seemed to shimmer with some kind of energy field, a security system left by Asha's ancestors. This was where Mrs. Sharma's research proved invaluable. Her detailed notes about the step-well's energy patterns helped them understand that the barrier wasn't meant to keep people out, but to test their intentions. Asha stepped forward, holding her crystal. The barrier responded to her presence, creating a display of light that told an ancient story. Through the holographic images, they learned that Earth had been chosen as a sanctuary world thousands of years ago. Her people had recognized something unique about this planet, not just its ability to sustain life, but its remarkable capacity for diversity and adaptation. The revelation was interrupted by sounds from above. Government teams had arrived, their equipment detecting the energy surge from the well. But as they tried to approach, something unexpected happened. The trees around the well, ancient guardians planted centuries ago, began releasing a subtle pollen that confused electronic equipment and created false readings, buying the group precious time. At the bottom of the well, they found what appeared to be a solid wall covered in intricate carvings. Dr. Iyer's instruments detected massive energy readings behind it, while Rajiv's analysis suggested sophisticated technology far beyond current human capabilities. But it was Mr. Sharma who made the crucial connection. The patterns matched the arrangement of stars in his wife's final observations. Asha placed her hands on the wall, and the crystal began to sing. There was no other word for it. The sound resonated with the stone, with the water deep below, with the very air around them. The wall dissolved like mist, revealing a chamber that defied human understanding. Inside, they found not just a sanctuary, but a nexus of knowledge. Crystalline structures similar to Asha's own held the combined wisdom of her civilization, scientific knowledge, cultural heritage, and most importantly, warnings about the very danger that had destroyed their world. The chamber was also a communication hub, connecting to other sanctuaries around the globe. Through this network, Asha was able to contact other refugee children for the first time. Each had found their own guardian, their own sanctuary, and each carried a piece of the puzzle. Together, they could do more than just survive, they could help Earth avoid the fate of their home world. But the most powerful discovery was personal. The chamber contained a final message from Asha's parents. They had known about Earth's sanctuaries, had calculated exactly where their daughter would land. The choice of Delhi wasn't random. They had detected Mrs. Sharma's research activities years ago and identified her as someone who was close to understanding the truth. Though she had passed away before Asha's arrival, her work had led Mr. Sharma to exactly where he needed to be. Above ground, the situation was reaching a critical point. The government teams were closing in, and strange lights in the sky suggested other interested parties were approaching. But the sanctuary had one final surprise. The stepwell's ancient defense systems activated, creating a field that masked their presence completely. To the outside world, the well appeared empty, its secrets hidden behind veils of light and shadow. The activation of the stepwell had consequences beyond their imagination. Across the globe, other sanctuaries began awakening. The network that had lain dormant for millennia stirred to life, each location protected by its own guardians, both human and alien. Earth's own biosphere seemed to respond, with plants and animals worldwide exhibiting new characteristics, subtle changes that would help protect the planet from the same solar dangers that had destroyed Asha's world. In the days that followed, their lives transformed yet remained remarkably the same. Mr. Sharma still taught Asha about Earth's culture and sciences, but now they also worked together to understand the vast knowledge left by her people. Rajiv decided to stay in India, using his technical skills to help protect the sanctuary's secrets. Dr. Iyer's small laboratory became a place where Earth science and alien wisdom began to merge, creating solutions to problems that had plagued humanity for generations. The government teams eventually departed, their instruments showing nothing but an ordinary historic sight. The strange lights in the sky faded away, whether defeated by the sanctuary's defenses or simply choosing to wait for another time. The stepwell returned to its appearance of abandoned antiquity, its true nature known only to those who were meant to find it. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in Asha herself. She was no longer just a refugee, no longer just a survivor. In Mr. Sharma, she had found not just a guardian but a father. In their small apartment, filled with books and glowing plants, she had found not just shelter but a home. And in her role as a bridge between two worlds, she had found not just purpose but hope. One evening, as they sat on their balcony watching the sunset paint the Delhi sky in colors that reminded Asha of her home world, she turned to Mr. Sharma and spoke in perfect Hindi. Sometimes the universe takes away one family to give you another. Mr. Sharma, his eyes glistening, simply nodded and held her hand. Above them, the first stars began to appear, their light carrying ancient messages across space and time. In gardens across the city, plants touched by Asha's presence continued to grow and thrive, their subtle glow a reminder of the magic that now lived among them. And deep beneath the city streets, in a chamber older than human memory, the crystalline archives of a lost civilization hummed with life, waiting to share their wisdom when the world was ready. The story of the starving orphaned alien girl had become something greater, a tale of two civilizations reaching across the stars to help each other survive, of ancient wisdom merging with new hope, and most importantly, of how love and family can transcend not just cultures or countries, but the very boundaries of space itself.